Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, shapes, sizes, and God, I don't got a thing to follow up with that. And that sets the stage for the most unconventional and least optimized playthrough of Borderlands ever. It's also the least optimized commentary ever, believe it or not, surprisingly enough. But we are, as you can see, we have begun our exploration into the Captain Scarlet and her Pirate's Booty DLC of Borderlands 2. I usually end up going to this or Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. Those are my two favorite expansions or DLCs for this game. I typically do those. One, I just get to a part in the main game where I just get a little bored. I get a little tired of it because I'd played the main game so many times. And so that's what's happened here. We've done all the Headhunter packs by this point, and this is going to be our first DLC. The Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep comes towards the end. I tried to time it where I was supposed to do it where I made some progress to do it. I go back to the main game, beat the main game, and then it would naturally follow that. Then we would do Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, which if you've played the games, you know why we would do that. Unfortunately, I don't do that. But yeah, so this one's not so much of a big deal as when it happens. But as you can see, we are not invincible. We are not coming into this way overpowered. We are hopefully adequately powered. But if I recall correctly, that first guy is he's kind of rough to handle in general. I think every time either I've died to him or I've made the mistake of just being a little too brash, a little too forward, and I end up getting wrecked by his compadres. So here we're definitely giving ourselves plenty of time, getting several of our what are they called? Enhanced. That's not the word either. What do you call that? The Bee Shield, for those who don't know, for the uninitiated, the Bee Shield is because it's an A, I believe. It's not enhanced. I said that already. Whatever. There are shields that give you amplified. It gives you an amp damage. It allows your first shot, if your shields are full, it allows your first shot to have some extra kick to it. But once you shoot it, it depletes your shields. The Bee is unique in that as long as your shield is up, as ours remained up, you're able to continue to shoot. Every shot you shoot is an amplified shot. Try to say that 5 times fast. And so we have our amplified shot, and it's doing very, very well. I'm not sure how harder that would have been if we hadn't amplified shots, but it would have been measurably harder just by virtue of what we're doing. This is really rough. I'm not entirely sure why. It could be because I'm not listening to the game. Maybe it's throwing me off in that. I just realized I don't need to hear myself talk, and if anything, the game audio is a distraction to me a little bit, so I figured I'd just try to do it without it. I remember being creeped out by Shade. I didn't know he's a creepy dude, but it's just like everybody else in Borderlands. You kind of understand it. You get it, especially when you realize kind of what he's been through with the people of wherever we're at. I can't remember the main hub where this place is called, but once you realize what they've been through, you're like, okay, I get it. Still a little creepy, but he's a genuinely nice guy. He's a creepy guy.
Many jobs for you. Have you met my friend Frank? He is a very gruff man. It'd be interesting to see how he was. I mean, Oasis. I guess that's what this is called. It's Oasis. It'd be interesting on some of these characters to see what they were like before Pandora got a hold of them. Before Pandora'd. I love the fact that we use nouns as verbs. What a world we live in. But yeah, before Pandora, all these people, how bad off they were. You know, Salvador was born into a bandit camp or, a bandit group of folks. So he's kind of set up for the worst that Pandora has to offer. And what we end up reading that he does and the life that he leads kind of aligns with that. Slightly better than a bandit. Maybe just a name only. But everybody else, they seem to be pretty decent folk who just
Wrong place at the wrong time. And in the case of Borderlands, if you're on Pandora, it's the wrong place always. There's no right time to be on Pandora. And there are certain parts of this that I didn't much care for. Like anytime I think there's a like yeah, I believe right now I can't hear it. Of course, I was like, what's the big idea? It doesn't matter if I can hear the music or not. But I'm pretty sure the music right now is very similar to The Dust. I wasn't a big fan of The Dust, just in general. Just the missions and just the overall feel of it, I didn't like. Mostly because it is very barren, very deserty, but not like Borderlands 1 barren and deserty. That was like very melancholy. The Dust is a little just more laid back. Like it's not depressing. It's just kind of like, it's here, it's Borderlands. I'm just talking about the vibe, the feel of it, how the music conspires with what you're doing. And that's how it gives you that feel. So it doesn't quite hit that. Like Borderlands just really made you feel, the first one really made you feel alone, isolated, prone to using synonyms a lot, often. Oy vey. Borderlands 2 doesn't ever really recapture that. I'm pretty sure we're going to see that in this. I think we have to do it in this one, don't we? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. It wasn't a DLC, but yeah, as we get towards the end, there's going to be a place where we go visit Firestone again. Our old stomping grounds from the first game. And even then, you play some of the music and you get a little bit of nostalgia whiff. But because the rest of the game is so fleshed out and it's clearly, you're not isolated. It's not as almost depressing in a way as the first one. You are able to... It doesn't have that same vibe, even though they play a rendition or a remix of the original music from it, which I appreciate. I love the fact they did that. I love the fact that you can revisit places from the first game, or at least that place. I mean, heck, I would almost be down with if they made a. Let's just forget the Borderlands 3 that they got away from. Let's just say they've run out of fresh stories to tell, or I don't know, because you still want a good story. But I was just thinking it'd be cool if you actually could combine 1 and 2, so you could go to the places from Borderlands 1 and the places in Borderlands 2, but you would just have to do something, because it's not necessarily the landscape that really is the draw. It's the villains and stuff. So it'd be kind of cool if you were to see, okay, when you chased out the pirates, Captain Scarlet's pirates or whatever, who filled the gap? How did that change the landscape? Us discovering, well, I'm not going to say it because it's spoilers, kind of, for those who haven't played, but we make a discovery here relatively soon, I believe, that kind of recontextualizes everything. It's like, okay, well, what do we see? What happens with Shade after that, and what happens to Oasis after that discovery? But anyway, I'm not really sure why I got off on that particular tangent. I very rarely know why I got off on that. This is where you really get to the creepy part, and the not the sad part, but the really disturbing part is that as creepy as this is, it would be exponentially creepier if there were any kind of real-world physics applied, because these people would be actively decomposing. There would be flies all over the place. I mean, it would be grotesque. It would be really grotesque. This is, these are just inert models right here, just of living characters that they've just posed. But if we were genuinely going through this, in any kind of realistic sense, and I'm kind of surprised that we're not. I'm not. Trust me, I am not. I would not want to see decomposing things, but we already saw zombies. We got zombies in the secret island of Dr. Ned, or Zed. I think it's Ned. I think Zed. Yeah, Zed's the good guy. Ned's the bad guy. We already saw them there, so it's not like it's out of the realm to show them with decomposing, whatever. But it would be excessively morbid to show that actually happening. But we see flies. We see flies on the rack and the skag piles. The poop piles, essentially. So, again, we've seen decomposing flesh. We've seen, or not actively decomposing, but we've seen decomposed zombie-fied flesh. And we've seen, I'm trying to kick that habit of saying, So call me out. Oh, I'm calling myself on it. You'll see me. I'll give myself a growl if I use that space filler. There's no need for it. But until I get over it, there are moments where I would normally kick off what I'm going to say with an And not doing that kind of stymies my brain for some reason. It's very sad. Very tragic. All this is very tragic. A PSA, I've announced this in other videos. If you get 7-Up, a lot of times, so this is, Hecho in Mexico. It's made in Mexico. It's supposed to be like the OG, before we started using all kinds of weird additives and everything. And the Coca-Cola actually tastes really, really good. It tastes like, it's like, man, this tastes like 1970s or 80s Coke. But the 7-Up does not taste anything like 7-Up. So I filled it with Zevia, their lemon lime concoction, which even though it does not taste like 7-Up exactly, it tastes more like 7-Up than this south of the border version of it. I expected it to be just as good as the Coke, but it wasn't. So just know that if you are looking to upgrade, I mainly did it for the glass bottle. I wanted to be able to drink out of a glass bottle. I think it's cool. It feels good. Makes me feel all manly and whatnot, But you're not actually going to get a great flavor, a great sampling of 7-Up from that. Anyway, my point was, we've seen it all. We've seen the different aspects of what would normally be happening to those bodies in different points of Borderlands, and they just didn't bring it together for some reason. And I'm just surprised, because they've never really shied away from kind of creepiness. I mean, they go out of the way. Shade, he's got the dried saliva drool on his face from like just the dehydration. His lips are cracked. So we're not. This game has never been shy of grotesque details in the past. So I'm just a little surprised, I guess, is my point. A little surprised that we haven't seen. Yeah, and admittedly, that's a great thing. Giving myself downtime between playthroughs, some of the stuff I totally forget how it goes down, and so I totally forgot that there was. I remembered having to chase the worm, but I couldn't remember where that took place. If we had to get it first, and then somehow we lost it, or whatever. But yeah, because there are some punishing places like that. I think we've seen a couple of them, and there are some in the future where you got one chance to make this jump. Oh no, it's actually in the first game. There's 2 or 3 places in the first game a little bit later on. I think it was Crom's Canyon, where you had one chance to make a jump, and if you didn't make it, you had to go all the way back up. It's a big, like, convoluted way to gain altitude. And you get all the way back up there, and you had to try it again. And if you screwed up, you had to go all the way back. So they minimize that in this game, but there are still a couple places that are like that. I just remember having to go try to find those claptrap repair kits. Most of those were pretty easy. There were some that were a right pain in the butt. Absolutely. I was kind of glad we didn't have that in this. I feel like most of the stuff that's really a pain in the butt to find in this game, you don't have to find it. It's not really a big deal. That said, I've never owned a Seraph weapon. I think that's how you pronounce it. Like, you have their Seraph vendors. Essentially, you get Seraph crystals. I think they're mostly from boss raids. And I think I've only ever done 1 or 2, but then you have to do it at a certain level. I was able to do it at the earliest level that you can do a boss raid, but you have to do it at like the 2nd or 3rd level. I don't remember. It's a thing. I've never gotten. I may have gotten 2 Seraph crystals in my entire life, and you need a lot of those to actually make any purchases. But I feel like I got a good taste of the game. I wasn't wanting for anything, despite not being able to do that. It's just one of the few times where, unless you're really, really good and you've got a really key build, you need to be able to play with friends in order to make that. In order to make that happen. And I've played it a lot of times with friends, but we've never done raid bosses. We always just played through the main campaign, which, I don't know. I guess I have crappy friends. They should have been like, "Hey, man, let's get some Seraph crystals. Let's do some farming. Let's take on Hyperion or Hyperius the Magnanimous or whatever the crap his name is, or Terramorphous." I beat Terramorphous. That's the one I did do by myself, and I got, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one I got the Gunzerker legendary class mod. It wasn't the one I wanted, but I did get a Gunzerker legendary class mod from that. But I don't think it was through Steam, which is how I've been playing this game for the longest of times. I think it was somewhere else. I might actually, you know what? That reminds me. I might actually try to play this on There's that word again. I'm trying to play this on Switch. I have it on Switch. I haven't touched it yet. So I might actually do a playthrough on Switch. Not that it's going to change anything, but just... And I'm guessing it holds up okay. I know Switch, the hardware has a hard time with some of the newer, more graphic-heavy stuff. But as we've discussed, even the pre-sequel, which came out after this, came out a long time ago. So I don't think it's going to have... I think even the Switch hardware is good enough to run this type of a game, which is crazy to me because to me it still looks robust. I love when art styles are done in a way that they don't really age out. And to be fair, I was playing Rainbow Six Siege with some friends. I'm just now learning to play it, but I was playing it with them, and it's a very old game as well. I think it's over a decade old as well, and it holds up pretty well visually. I think Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which is kind of my bread and butter, that's the one that I put the most time into. I think that has a little bit better visuals, but most of it's, my preference is just the way the game plays. I like the haptics, to be able to feel the shots, the way they register, and just domination. Like I'm not a huge fan of the game in general. I like domination. I like having 3 different objectives that you have to go to. Like, you don't have to go to any one in particular, but that you go to so you can figure out where the defense and the offense positions are. You respawn immediately, so if you get screwed over, you go back and you can get your vengeance or figure something out. Whereas the Siege, you've got more of a downtime. You could be waiting. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, like a minute or something, but it still kind of sucks that you're having to step away from the action, and you don't have 3 objectives. You just have the one. And you're locked in as defense or offense. And in my experience, I was getting shot before I ever saw somebody because I didn't know the maps. I mean, that's part of it anyway. And so until you get that part sorted out, it's like, okay, I'm playing for 10 seconds. I get shot. Now I'm sitting and waiting for 5 minutes. And sometimes I may actually get a kill. But a lot of times, the recoil, the way it's handled, it's again different than Call of Duty. For some reason, it just feels there. I feel like I was able to get more shots on target with Call of Duty, whereas Rainbow Six, the guns pull really bad. Like, I'll get 1 or 2 shots off, and even then, I don't really feel like I'm that... I don't know. And I don't use aim assist. Well, maybe I do. Maybe that's part of it. Because I play on console. I play with a controller, so I think, Call of Duty, I use the lowest. I think there's 3 different aim assist, and I think I used the lowest one, but it is still aim assist. And maybe that's it, because there's no aim assist in Rainbow Six. So that could be it. I'm just now having this epiphany. Right now, as I'm watching this Borderlands playthrough, totally focused in on what's going on, not at all completely lost in my own little world, I'm realizing that could be my beef with the Rainbow Six, is there is no aim assist, which is fine. I've never enjoyed having aim assist. I got used to it without realizing it was there. I just thought I was that good, because I am that good in a lot of ways. I'm just kidding, of course. So I just thought that I was playing it well, and so once I realized that I wasn't, I tried to play with that aim assist, and it was like ridiculous. And then when I realized everybody else was using it, and I think that's kind of the key, like nobody else is using it in Siege because it's not available. So yeah, I just got to get good. I think that's the moral of the story. So I'm not sure how many episodes this DLC is going to take. I'm gonna guess, because we're about 20 minutes in. I'm gonna say at least 1 more episode, probably 2. The DLCs are pretty girthy, but that said, we're not using, as I mentioned before, if you're not familiar, we're not doing a lot of the side quests. Obviously, in order to win, we have to do all the main quests. But we're sparing. It's pretty sparing when it comes to which side quests we do. Just because I have done them before, and some of them I just know they're kind of tedious. There's not like a narrative boon to doing it. It's not like you're getting really a leg up. or getting a really interesting piece of the story. But if I do a playthrough on Switch, it'll be starting with Borderlands 1. No, I think it's going to start with the... I have to do my... I can't remember. I think... Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's pre-sequel. Timeline-wise, chronologically, that starts everything off. If that's the case, I'll start with that one. Then play Borderlands 1. And then 2. And I'll play I'll play everything. I'll do all the stuffs. And more or less in order. Except for Digipeak or whatever it's called in the first one, where it's just kind of like it's just a level up thing. You're just going to gain levels. There's no story whatsoever. It's just do the things. The Underdome, Mad Moxie's Underdome, maybe. Again, I guess I should say I'm more focused on all the story-oriented DLCs, which would include Torg's Carnage, Campaign of Carnage, or whatever that's called. We don't do it on this playthrough. But if I were to actually go through and play Borderlands 2 again, it would be a complete playthrough in that regard. I would do the big game hunts with Hammerlock, which we dabbled here a little bit. I went just so that I could kill some drifters, and then we moved on. These little guys are a pain in the butt. It's the stalkers. It's a toss up between them and those little droid things, the little baby planes that work in tandem with the robots. Those are a pain in the butt too. Just to try to focus down on, or just to pin them down. If you're not using Maya, both the stalker and I don't remember what they're called. We'll just call them drones. Both of those are a big pain in the butt to deal with. Can be. Here it's easy because we've got a legendary sniper rifle, and for a lot of these shots we've got the amplified damage going on to make short work of them. 175 points of damage, and if I'm not mistaken, we're still seeing... Did we just saw a weapon drop that is overstated for us? Might be the case. Maybe it was level 25. We're almost at 25. I haven't been paying attention to what the levels are. Okay, 26! Tinkles! I'm pretty sure. But look at that! He's 2 levels higher than us. That's our fastball at work right there. I love that grenade. Love that grenade. So yeah, we're underpowered right now. And we're holding our own, mostly due to our awesome firepower and the augmentation that the bee gives us. So I love the bee! Who doesn't love the bee? Just beholding the magnificence of that giant talker. They always look more intimidating when they're moving, I've found. Not sure why that is. Like when you're fighting them, it's like, oh my gosh, this thing is horrifying. And then even in, so they don't, oh, they do have it in this one as well. It's just not as often. So you remember in the first game, you'd have the elemental skags. And so you come across them and their eyes would be glowing with green or fire, or maybe it was just the electric that glowed, or the what was that elemental called? Static? Not static, that sounds weak. I don't remember what it's called, but you know, the electrocution stuff. I know those skags, their eyes glowed with the power of electrocution, but I can't remember. I feel like the badass skags, badass elementals, all had glowing eyes of their particular element. But even if not, they were scary looking, and they were intimidating, and usually it was because at whatever point I was at in the game, they were actually a legitimate threat. And they had that certain music that played. It was very interesting. I don't know how to describe it. It's very weird. It's got like this, it's like these Vobox vocals, but they're not really singing. It's like, wow, 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 but it's, man. The powers of communication when it comes to music are, for me anyway, are rendered quite impotent. But you know the song I'm talking about. If you take a lot of damage, especially, I can't remember the name of the map, really where you first encounter a good chunk of your skags in the first game. It's not Firestone. It's you go through this. It's on your way to get to Five Toes, or 4 toes, or 3 toes, 6 toes, 1 toe, 2 toe. I don't remember. The guy, you know the guy. 9 toes. There it is. 9 toes. There's, and it may only be in that area, but if the skags start like really chomping at you and get your shield down and it looks like you're gonna die, they start playing that music. And it's kind of a, like a, I don't know. It's just it's a very unique sound, unique song, and it really just makes you feel like you're just up against it. And Mordecai, I remember playing with him, and he'd like yell every time when he'd go down, like when he's goes down to second wind, he's like, "Die, never die," or something like that. But it sounds, it's like a defiance, but also kind of like a mournful. I keep using that word. It's not exactly it. But you know what I'm saying? I say that a lot this time. I'm hoping you get what I'm saying. Like you can say, "Die, never die," and it's kind of it's pure defiance. But the way he says it, it's like it's almost like he's saying, "I don't want to die," at the same time that he's saying, "I never die." In fact, I think I thought he said initially, I don't want to die," but he said, "I'll never die," or "I never die." But he was saying it in such a way that is almost like he's mourning the fact that he's dying. So it's very powerful. I can't remember what Lilith says or does. Probably because Lilith is so much easier to play with. Mordecai, his Bloodwing is absolute crap. But Lilith's power is actually pretty good. And in that part of the game, I remember distinctly using it to, wow, we just took down a guy who gave us 435 XP like he was nothing. Yep, they're all still level. Now, granted, after a few more kills, we're going to be on par with them. They're all level 25. And that's something, I mentioned it before, it's very weird with the DLCs. I'm never certain if I'm going to come in overpowered, underpowered, or on par when it comes to the DLCs. Headhunters, I think, no, it's the same thing with those. Sometimes I'd go to like my favorite one to go to is Marcus's Mercenary Day, because you could really farm the heck out of it with great efficacy and brevity to get a lot of cool stuff. But sometimes I'd go there and I'd be like 5 levels under or 10 levels under even. And then sometimes I come in there and I'd be right where I need to be, and very few times that I come in and I was overpowered. But I feel like it's kind of the same thing with DLCs. It's supposed to be, I think the DLCs, I think they both say like you're supposed to be at a certain level before you play. Like in theory, you've beaten the game. I guess that's what it boils down to. The developers are expecting that because they've come out so long after the game has already been out, they expect that you've already beaten the game. So you're already at least supposed to be at level 25 or 26. Because I think that's like the theoretical minimum, maybe. Maybe you can beat it at a lower level, but I think probably 25 is your lowest level to beat it at, without it being a huge grind and a big pain in the butt. And so they expect you to be at that level. So I think a lot of the DLCs but Headhunters, I'm pretty sure they queue you in at 15 or 16. And then the DLCs, I think it's a standard 25. So we'll see. But then after that, I think it levels up with you. I don't know. It's a mess. It's kind of a crapshoot, but we're doing all right. We're having a good time. That's the important thing. Don't have to have it all figured out. It's good to have it figured out. There are people that do. I'm not one of those people. I'm just jumping around like it's my job. And in this particular case, it actually is. We are fulfilling a quest.
Marriage. And I don't believe in marriage. I'm sorry, Shade, but the answer is no. She said no? Oh, woe is me. I gave you my heart, Natalie.
And at this point, it's even more like once you come across your Shade's first friend and you realize these are all dead people, the whole thing just gets really macabre and kind of, I mean, it in a way, some of the stuff is more humorous, but really it's just sad. And you get the idea that Shade probably was kind of a bit of a dork in real life. Like he's a creepy dork now. He was probably he was always a dork. Bit of a nerd. Like I think all his responses, everything is based off of personal experience, which is kind of sad. But I remember when I first played this, I wondered, is this guy going to screw us over? Is he going to be like a typical... Is he going to be a Borderlands baddie? Or is he going to end up being kind of one of our allies, one of our stalwart companions and friends? And, well, you'll just have to wait and see what happens. But Captain Scarlet, that was kind of a no-brainer. You knew where that was going to go. I mean, she tells you most of the time. We haven't seen her yet, have we? Just realized that. It is kind of a long time before you get to finally meet her, which is, I think, kind of nice. I like when it takes a little bit of time to meet the titular character. Gives them a little more upbuilding. There were some people I've read since then. Now, granted, you go online, you're going to find plenty of people that don't like any number of things, even awesome things. A few exceptions. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there were two things I remember particularly noting because I made a comment. I was like, wow, have we found like the one thing that the internet as a whole agrees on, like actually likes? There are some things I think the internet agrees on that they don't like, but there's very few things I feel like that people come together and just pretty much everybody either likes it or is like, it's not bad. You know, it's not the worst thing. I don't know if it was a movie, a game, probably a movie, but it just was something that seemed to get universal praise. I mean, Lord of the Rings is kind of there. Like even people who aren't fans of Lord of the Rings can at least appreciate the movies for what they are. They wouldn't call them bad movies. Purists aren't necessarily, I mean, I'm not a purist, but there were definitely enough changes or alterations to the original story that part of me was going, I kind of wish you'd done things a little bit different. But even for people like me, I would not even come close to saying that I've got a problem with it or that it's not a good set of movies. At the very least, it is a masterclass in directing and producing a monumental project. The fact you have so many different elements going on at so many different points, and you're doing 3 different movies, but they had to be done. You weren't shooting the trilogy. You were shooting the first movie because you needed to get that done first, and the second one. But I'm guessing, and I don't remember now. I've watched a bunch of making of commentaries. Cursed Pirates are freaky. One, the name is kind of freaky, but they'll run at you, and they're pretty rough, pretty hard to handle. I mean, look at that. That's just kind of creepers. Luckily, I'm freaking awesome. Otherwise, I'd be in great pedal. Crap, scallions aren't too bad. There's another one. Obviously, anything badass is going to be hard to handle. But yeah, here we are, gunzerking, sniping. As I said, least optimized playthrough. This is not the character that you want to be sniping with. In theory, Zero is, but I never really much cared for Zero. Because I don't like melee, per se. And I don't like because his stuff, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a long time since I played him, but if I'm not mistaken, the whole thing is illusion. It doesn't really, like, you create a shadow image of yourself, and they can attack it, but it doesn't hurt them. It's more like just a distraction. And I know it does, you know, he's got a tree you can build that has other perks, but his action feature isn't something that's all that great. But I think you can, if you build the tree right, you can make him a really cool freaking sniper. But I wanted the option to be something other than a sniper. It just ended up going. I mean, if we didn't end up with a legendary sniper rifle, I probably would not have gone this route. I'd like to think I still would have gone B route when we got that early on. Give me your head. Blinkety blinkety. You know, I went shot. Ugh, game with the Uz. Went archery shooting with a friend a couple weeks ago. And granted, we're not shooting a bow and arrow here, but I think we can all relate to the virtual aiming versus real life aiming. If you've never shot a gun, never shot a bow and arrow, and you've only played like Call of Duty or games like this, first-person shooters, you owe it to yourself to go out there once to some kind of range and just appreciate how much more difficult it is, even from 20 yards out, let alone something like this. Just 20 yards away, it can be exponentially difficult, more difficult to hit a target. Obviously, reloading is a big pain in the butt. You have to worry about Oh, he lost his hat. And his head, and, you know, the rest of his corporal form, but hey, that's the power of...
Oh, thank God you got the whiskey. Brink was beginning to get violent. Please
the power of the volcano. I think pre-Scarlet is like 1/3 of the DLC, and then post-Scarlet is 2/3. So it might actually be 2 more episodes after this one. I think we might end this one. I'm getting a feeling, getting the vibe that this one's going to end right about the time that we meet Captain Scarlet. So I keep looking up how many videos I've made, how many times I've done this, and I still about a week ago got 40 minutes into a video and realized I hadn't been recording the audio. So I'm kind of paranoid now, especially when I start getting 40 minutes into any kind of commentary or anything. I want to make sure that I'm actually recording this, because it takes a lot out of you. I definitely have a great appreciation for content creators and like people who stream for any length of time, because you've got the social interaction, especially when you're streaming. You're trying to focus on the game. And I have seen people, somehow they've got a lot of people that'll watch, but they don't really say a whole lot. They just they play the game and they're good at what they do, but they're not really saying much. I still respect it, and I can still appreciate that they garner an audience, but it's folks that are able to carry on conversations, respond to the people in chat, and still manage to play at a pretty high level. That takes a lot of energy, a lot of focus, and there are people that do it for 6, 7, 8 hours. I've done, as you might have seen on my channel, I've done 1 or 2 7 to 8 hour streams, and it really just comes down to the energy. Honestly, it really comes down to the people in chat. It's not putting that on them, but if you're going to go for that long, there's got to be something pushing you forward, and usually it's people sparking up conversations, asking questions, challenging, even if they're just ribbing you, it gives you something to respond to. Because just by yourself, it can be a long time. I mean, I remember I played Mario 1 for 8 hours on Christmas Day. I got it. I'd played it before. I never beat it on my own at that point. I watched some of my friends beat it, so I kind of knew the path to take. I knew, where the warps were, and I knew how to get through Bowser's Castle. But beating World 8-1, man, there was that one jump where it's like you jump and you got to jump to this little pillar in the middle, and you jump from there to the other side, and I could not make that jump to save my life. It didn't help that when I used to play, every time I jump, I jerked the controller up like this. So it was, not in front of my face, but I couldn't just jump. The whole body got involved, and that kind of screws you up. So I was hosed by my own poor gaming technique. Something I have since absolved myself of or corrected. Goodness knows how I would be playing this if I still reacted like that. And also, if you've never been on a bike seat, you can appreciate how very painful this must be with all the bumps and the falls and everything, and you're sitting on a bicycle seat, essentially. Slightly bigger, slightly more padded, but in essence, a bicycle seat. Very painful. I think that's the first time I ever found that. I still have yet to find all of them, or I think even enough of them to give me any kind of boon. I don't know what happens if you find all of them, or if you find a number of them in a certain area. I don't know if you get a certain... I'm sure there's something you get, but I have not yet found enough of them to access whatever that perk may happen to be. A little surprised on this quest, I don't know, I'm sure in the audio you're able to get the idea of what this particular quest is about. A little surprised they were able to put that in this game. This kind of topic is usually a little touchy. Not that I'm saying. I mean, hey, if it's in real life, it's fair game. We don't want to pretend that horrible things don't happen in real life. There aren't ugly things in real life, especially in a game like this where you are just, for the most part, acknowledging that this is the worst possible path that humanity could take on a planet. And that everything you're going to encounter here is pretty disgusting and vile. In a game like that particularly, you don't want to shy away from those sorts of things. But it's just interesting, and how our sensibilities have kind of changed a little bit or morphed since this game came out. That said, from what I understand, I mean, the third game was had its own share of issues, and it wasn't a controversial topic. It was just bad takes, I guess. I don't know. This game tapped. It definitely stepped into some cow pies, to put it nicely, at different points where you're going, I see this trending in a way that's probably not good for the series overall, but you're hoping, hey, there's somebody there to help them dial it back, or they'll bring in different writers or something, but I think they kept the same writers, the same kind of team, and they just didn't have a lot of really good stuff to go with, and it was right on the cusp of some societal changes or societal trends that we are only now starting to get to the other side of. And we may have a long ways to go. I really can't tell longevity. I personally think we're going to see a change in the next 6 years, but I think it's going to take that long before there's a true turnaround. And that all the old habits, the old tendencies, the old mentality is truly purged, and we can move on in a new direction. Sucks that it takes that long, but I kind of get that vibe. And if it happens earlier, great. But I'm not expecting it to happen before 2030. But I fear that Borderlands, regardless of when it happens or how it happens, I think Borderlands is done as an IP. The movie wasn't needed to revive it necessarily, because I mean people still love the first two games, even the pre-sequels. I think the third game lost more people than it gained. I think there was a net loss in the Borderlands fandom. And I guess it's okay that the movie sucked, because if you were to get excited about it and be like, whoa, what, this is based on a video game? What game is this? And people were to explore that, they would find 2.5 good games and one really bad one. The most recent one is a pretty bad one. And I never played the Telltale games. Obviously, they're completely different play style than this. I played this because I like first person, not because I want to play. It's like pretty much just playing a story, right? If I'm not mistaken, Telltale, that's kind of their whole thing. It's not really a gameplay thing. It's more like pick your adventure, but with a computer game instead of a book. Maybe not. Maybe I have it wrong, but I never. I mean, I do like some games like that, like the Cursed Monkey Island. I mean, those are puzzle solving games. And if that's what Telltale was, maybe I would have been interested in it. But I don't know. I feel like the thematically, the kind of story that this is, or the kind of game that this is, the kind of world we're in, the kind of tale that is being told here, I can only stomach it, I guess, or get immersed in it because of the style of game that it is. If it was supposed to be more focused on the story, if it was less instant interaction, if it was a little more ponderous, I should say, if it was an RPG, I don't think, like a pure RPG, I don't think I'd do it. I don't think I could hack it. Like, I don't love the characters in the story that much that I want to see them in a game where it's going to be all about the characters in the story. It needs to still be focused on the mechanics, the nifty guns, the different combinations of guns you can get, trying to level up, that kind of thing. Which that is the RPG element in this. But I wouldn't. This isn't Pandora is not a place that I would want to RPG my way through. Oh man, I tell you, you know when you're getting old. The second time this happened, the first time it's something like right, kind of middle of the back, but on the left side. So in terms of height, middle, it's above the small of the back, but not up at the shoulders, but off on the left-hand side. Pulled something while I was sleeping about a week ago. It took a day for it to, the pain to kind of edge off, for the discomfort. It wasn't painful. It was very uncomfortable. And today, I was getting a shower. Don't even remember what I was doing. I think I was scrubbing my back or something. Same thing, just flared up. So now, I'm in a great deal of discomfort. And I'm not saying that to elicit any kind of sympathy or anything from you. But just know that I'm grimacing inwardly. Magnificently, majestically, I am bearing up under the weight of whatever ridiculous affliction I have acquired just by being over the age of 40. That is what I'm dealing with right now. So if my concentration did not seem to be on par, if the commentary is not the stellar, verbose, insightful, and charismatic. I think I got a bug bite on my knuckle. I'm just falling apart here, folks. Just falling apart here. But that's the reason. I have an excuse. I have a reason. There's a difference between excuses and reasons. It's a nuanced argument, but there is something to be said for that. I mean, if you're late for work, let's say you leave 20 minutes early. You're supposed to get to work at 11:45. Well, who gets to work at 11:45? You get to work. It's supposed to be at work at 7. It takes you, on an average day, 20 minutes to get to work. You leave at 7:30, 7:25. You give yourself an extra 15 minutes just in case the lights don't work out, just in case there's a little fender bender or something and people are rubbernecking. You give yourself just a little bit of extra time, and you always get to work at least 5 minutes early, maybe 10 minutes early. But one day there's a huge accident. There's no other way for you to go. You're stuck because you can't get off the road, and you end up being 45 minutes late. That's not an excuse. That's a reason. There's a reason why you were late. You're not excusing your behavior. You're not trying to say, well, but I mean, in a way you are. You're saying, yeah, I did everything that I could reasonably do to make sure that I'm at work on time. I usually am, but in this particular instance, circumstances conspired to put me at have me showing up late. But I feel like that's not the same as I missed my alarm. But I mean, I hate to make it sound as superficial or petty as it just being a matter of, is one good and the other one not? Like, I'm late for work because it was an accident on the only route to get there, and even if I'd left 45 minutes early, I still would have been late because it was an hour and a half delay. That to me is a reason. Whereas I got wasted last night and I overslept this morning. That's an excuse. But on the face of it, the only distinction there being one is a good reason for being there, a justifiable reason. The other one is not. And maybe it's that simple, but I thought there was some nuance to it. There was some distinction, some difference between what an excuse is. I feel like you have to give an excuse when you're trying to justify something that is not justifiable. So you're trying to transform something that isn't justified, something you've done that isn't justified. You're trying to transform that into something that is justified by relaying a particular circumstance. But that circumstance is not adequate to justify the situation. Whereas if you're not making excuses, you're just giving a reason. You're not trying to justify it. It's almost like it's inherently justified. Yeah, I don't know. I had it worked out at one point. I thought I had it worked out at one point, but maybe I didn't. But I think my point is, I think there needs to be a distinction. There's a reason. Well, in my case, like, okay, well, no. So what would be the the distinction. If I was to say, okay, let's just agree that this is one of my worst episodes ever, and I say, well, I was dealing with some kind of mild discomfort the whole time that kind of just made it an unpleasant experience and kind of distracted me. Would that be an excuse or would that be a reason? I feel like the excuse is all about justifying, whereas a reason isn't justifying or isn't trying to justify. It's simply stating a fact. Maybe it's how you use it. Maybe it's why you use it. But in both cases, I would be trying to justify why the commentary is suffering, or why I was late to work. In both cases, I'd be telling my boss, here's my reason why I wasn't on time, or here's the reason why I wasn't really making a whole lot of sense. But what distinguishes that as a reason versus an excuse? Because an excuse, it has a negative connotation. Like nobody, anytime you say, oh, somebody's made an excuse or you're making excuses, it's never a good thing. It's never adequately justifying. So is it an end justifies the means? Is it only an excuse if it doesn't work? If it doesn't actually, maybe that's it. Maybe that really is it. An excuse doesn't actually justify it. It explains it. But it doesn't justify it. Whereas a reason is a justification as well as an explanation. So, why were you late today? Because I left the house late. Because I got stuck on my phone watching social media. That's a reason. It is a reason. It is an explanation of why you're late, but it doesn't justify the lateness. So it would be, if you were trying to use it as a, it would be like, oh, no, I'm only late because I was lost on social media. Well, that would be making excuses. That would be trying to excuse something that you really can't justifiably excuse. Whereas if you just say, yeah, I'm late because this is what I did. I'm just stating it the way it is. I'm not saying that it's okay or it makes it okay that I was late. I'm just saying it is what it is. So I guess this would be, I guess in this particular case, it comes down to my own perception of my development. If I'm at the point where I believe that I should be able to push through a level of discomfort, and regardless of what the task is, whether it's making a video, whether it's playing a sport, whether it's helping somebody move, like whatever it is, if I'm at the point where I say, unless it's a debilitating injury, something that's preventing me from doing something, and I know that I'm not exacerbating the injury by doing what I'm doing. So in this case, I tweaked a muscle, I tweaked something. It's not getting any better or worse with me doing this. So knowing that, am I at a place, I believe psychologically, that I should be able to just push through and ignore it?
You're a vault hunter, yeah? Never met
In
one.
which case, I'm just
All the
making an
guns,
excuse for
powerful, very
why
striking. If you're looking for the treasure of the sand,
this
come to the right
commentary
ship,
has been
but-
subpar,
I'm being rude. I haven't even
or
introduced myself. Do that a lot. Sorry. I'm,
if I think it's reasonable to still be in for the pain could be a distraction, is a justifiable distraction if it's at a certain level in a certain area or what have you.
Oh, right.
Because I mean,
Probably get you up to speed.
yeah.
So the legends
Then
say that whoever gets all 4 pieces
then
of
I'm kind of doing myself. I'm saying that I'm admitting that I'm not
I've got a piece.
as formidable or as
But
robust
Sandman has one too.
as I should be.
Heads haters fully, kills
But I'm
Sandman
also
and gets
saying
his piece of the compass.
where I'm at in my life right now, that this is enough to distract me. This is enough to make. I would say like with Michael Jordan when he had the flu game. A lot of us, if we're sick with the flu, we can justify poor performance because we're sick. But anyway, the game's over. I got to get going. So we'll pick this up in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.